Ready? Question 1 is up. SMB Share Solutions is implementing shared storage for a media application hosted in AWS. They need SMB client compatibility and a fully managed solution. Which AWS storage service meets these requirements? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. FSx for Windows is AWS's only native SMB service. Amazon FSx for Windows File Server provides fully managed, native Windows file systems that support the SMB protocol. This makes it directly compatible with SMB clients and Windows-based applications. It's a fully managed service, reducing operational overhead, and can be easily integrated with EC2 instances or other AWS services hosting the media application. Welcome back to Stack Lessons. 10 questions today, focused on S3 versioning lifecycle, Aurora serverless dev environments, and keyless EC2 access. Quick reminder of the format. Question read aloud, 6-second countdown, answer revealed, then the explanation. Let's see how you do. Count every one you get right. Your score matters at the end. Let us switch gears. Question 2 is next. Quick check. DevProdev an app is launching on AWS. It uses an ALB directing traffic to at least 2 EC2 instances in a target group, within an auto-scaling group. They need separate development and production environments. Production will have high traffic periods. How can the development environment be configured most cost-effectively? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. 1 instance minimum is all a dev environment needs. For a development environment which typically doesn't require the same level of high availability or performance as production, running fewer resources is key to cost effectiveness. By configuring the auto-scaling group for the development environment to have a minimum and desired capacity of 1 EC2 instance, you minimize the number of running instances and associated costs, while still having a functional environment for development and testing. Keep your focus here. Question 3, do not skim the condition. CriticalDB failover runs a fleet of web servers using an Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL DB instance. After a routine compliance check, a new standard requires a recovery point objective, RPO, of less than 1 second for all production databases to minimize data loss. Which RDS feature or configuration directly supports achieving such a low RPO? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Synchronous replication is the word that seals this answer. An Amazon RDS multi-AZ deployment for PostgreSQL and other engines like MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server provides high availability and data durability by synchronously replicating data from the primary DB instance to a standby instance located in a different availability zone within the same AWS region. Because the replication is synchronous, committed transactions are written to both the primary and standby instances before an acknowledgement is sent back to the application. This results in a very low recovery point objective, RPO, typically in the order of seconds or even sub-seconds, effectively meeting the requirement of RPO 1 second for most scenarios. Alright, question 4. The wrong answers are close. EKS Secrets Encrypt Corp uses Amazon EKS for its container applications. A security policy requires that all sensitive information stored as Kubernetes secrets within the EKS cluster, specifically in the etcd key value store, must be encrypted at rest. Which solution meets this requirement with the least operational overhead? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Secrets Manager with CSI Driver looks right, but adds operational layers. Amazon EKS provides a native feature for encrypting Kubernetes secrets at rest in etcd using AWS Key Management Service, AWS KMS. By enabling this feature on your EKS cluster and specifying a KMS key, either AWS managed or customer managed, EKS automatically handles the encryption and decryption of secrets stored in etcd. This is a fully managed solution integrated directly into EKS, providing strong security with minimal operational overhead for managing the encryption process itself. All right, question 5. Match the answer to the situation. Log Archive compliance means to retain AWS CloudTrail logs for 3 years. They enforce CloudTrail across accounts using AWS organizations, with logs sent to a central S3 bucket, versioning enabled. An S3 lifecycle policy deletes current objects after 3 years. After the 4th year, S3 metrics show the object count rising, though new log delivery remains consistent. How can objects older than 3 years be deleted most cost-effectively, including all versions? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. Rising count despite consistent delivery, non-current versions are accumulating. When S3 versioning is enabled, deleting an object creates a delete marker but retains previous versions. A lifecycle policy that only expires the current version will not remove these underlying old versions or delete markers if they themselves are older than 3 years. To effectively delete all data, current and non-current previous versions older than 3 years, the S3 lifecycle policy must be configured with actions to expire current versions and permanently delete non-current previous versions after the specified period. FSX for native SMB, one instance dev ASG, multi-AZ for sub-second RPO, native EKS KMS encryption, and S3 non-current version lifecycle rules. Okay, let's read question 6. FinAnalytics Co. observed a spike in Amazon EC2 costs in their latest AWS bill. The finance team suspects unauthorized vertical scaling of some EC2 instances. A solutions architect needs to generate a visual comparison of EC2 costs from the last 2 months and conduct an in-depth analysis to pinpoint the cause of this vertical scaling. How can this be achieved with minimal operational effort? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option C. Cost Explorer is purpose-built for visual cost comparison. AWS Cost Explorer is a tool designed for visualizing, understanding, and managing AWS costs and usage. It offers granular filtering options, allowing the solutions architect to easily compare EC2 costs over different periods, e.g., the last 2 months, and break them down by instance type. This facilitates an in-depth analysis to identify instances of vertical scaling with minimal operational overhead. Okay, question 7. Do the logic before the recall. OU change it is using AWS organizations. A solutions architect needs a system to identify any modifications made to the organizational unit, OU hierarchy within their organization. The system must also promptly notify the company's central operations team whenever such changes occur. Which AWS service or feature will meet these OU change detection and notification requirements with the least operational overhead? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. Lambda polling looks clever. EventBridge is native and real-time. AWS CloudTrail captures API calls made to AWS organizations, including actions that modify the OU hierarchy, such as creating, deleting, or moving OUs, or moving accounts between OUs. Amazon EventBridge can be configured to create rules that listen for specific CloudTrail events related to these AWS organizations' API calls. When a matching event occurs, e.g., create organizational unit, the EventBridge rule can trigger a target, such as an Amazon SNS topic, which then sends a notification to the operations team. This provides an automated real-time alerting mechanism for OU hierarchy changes with minimal operational overhead, as it leverages managed AWS services. Okay, question 8. Anchor on the exact workload. DevDB Environment Corp is creating multiple development environments for its software developers. Each environment requires its own PostgreSQL database schema. On average, each development environment is actively used for approximately half of the standard 8-hour workday and is idle for the rest of the time, including nights and weekends. Which AWS database solution will meet these requirements most cost-effectively while providing a PostgreSQL-compatible environment? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option A. Idle half the workday means provisioned instances bleed money. Amazon Aurora Serverless v2, post-Paycro compatible, is an on-demand auto-scaling configuration that automatically starts up, shuts down, or scales to a very minimal capacity for v2, effectively minimizing cost when idle, and scales compute and memory capacity based on actual application demand. For development environments that are only used for a portion of the workday and are idle for extended periods, Aurora Serverless v2 can be highly cost-effective. It provides a PostgreSQL-compatible interface, and you pay only for the database capacity consumed when the environment is active, significantly reducing costs during idle times compared to running provisioned instances 24/7. Let's dig into Aurora Serverless v2. This is the exact service the question is testing. Think of it like a utility meter that nearly freezes when no one's home. Aurora Serverless v2 works the same way. Your dev team has 10 environments, each used 4 hours a day. Regular RDS keeps all 10 instances running 24/7. You pay for 240 instance hours daily. Serverless v2 bills in Aurora capacity units, or ACUs, at about 12 cents each per hour. When an environment sits idle, it drops to as low as 0.5 ACU, almost nothing. Enable auto pause and it hits 0. One catch. Standard v2 without auto pause still charges that 0.5 ACU minimum. You only really pay for active hours when it's set up right. That's why serverless v2 wins. Idle time costs almost nothing. Here we go, question 9. Pick the complete answer. Secure Instance Access Corp manages hundreds of Amazon EC2 Linux-based instances across its AWS environment. Historically, systems administrators have used shared SSH keys for managing these instances. Following a recent stringent security audit, the company has mandated the complete removal of all shared SSH keys. A solutions architect is tasked with designing a new secure access solution for these EC2 instances that also minimizes administrative overhead. What is the most appropriate and secure approach? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option B. No inbound SSH ports open is the phrase that proves this. AWS Systems Manager Session Manager provides a highly secure and audible method for managing EC2 instances without the need to open inbound SSH ports, configure Bastion hosts, or manage SSH keys. Users can initiate secure shell sessions directly from the AWS Management Console or via the AWS CLI. Access is controlled through fine-grained IAM policies and roles, providing a centralized and more secure way to manage instance access while significantly reducing the administrative overhead associated with traditional SSH key management and Bastion host maintenance. This one trips people up. A Bastion host feels right, but let's think it through. Imagine you manage 500 EC2 instances. Every admin has a shared SSH key. Then one gets compromised. Now you're rotating keys on 500 machines at midnight. That's the pain Session Manager solves. With Session Manager, there are no SSH keys at all. No port 22 open. No Bastion host to patch. Install the Systems Manager agent on each instance and attach an IAM role. Your admins then log in through the console or CLI. IAM controls who gets access. CloudTrail logs every command. The exam loves this question because a bastion host sounds secure, but it still needs SSH keys. Session Manager kills the SSH problem at the root. Here we go. Question 10. Choose for this case, not every case. On-premises to cloud DR needs a disaster recovery DR plan for its primary on-premises file storage volume. This volume is currently mounted from an Internet Small Computer Systems Interface (IFACE) device on a local storage server and holds hundreds of terabytes (TB) of critical data. A key requirement is that end users must retain immediate, low-latency access to all file types from their on-premises systems. Which DR solution, leveraging AWS, will meet these needs with the least amount of change to the company's existing on-premises infrastructure and user access patterns? Select one answer. Review the answer choices on screen. The correct answer is option D. ISK preserved, local cache kept, S3 snapshots enable the DR. AWS Storage Gateway's Volume Gateway, when configured in cached volumes mode, allows on-premises applications and servers to access data stored primarily in Amazon S3 while maintaining a local cache of frequently accessed data for low latency performance. By mounting the Volume Gateway via the ICC protocol to the existing on-premises file server, the existing infrastructure and user access patterns via the file server are largely preserved with minimal changes. Scheduled snapshots of these volumes are stored durably in Amazon S3 and can be readily restored to Amazon EBS volumes in AWS for disaster recovery purposes, creating new EC2-based file servers if needed. Let's unpack this one. The Storage Gateway cached volumes mode trips up a lot of exam candidates. Imagine your storage server has an iSCSI device plugged in. Users mount drives off it every day. Nothing changes for them. Now swap that old SAA-C device for an AWS Storage Gateway. It still speaks IC, the same storage protocol, so your server sees nothing new. Here's the trick. It keeps a local cache of the hottest files, say 10 terabits, so reads stay fast. Behind the scenes, everything flows up to S3. Scheduled snapshots land there too. If disaster strikes, restore that snapshot to an EBS volume. Then attach that volume to an EC2 instance. You're back. That's the win. A drop-in replacement that adds Cloud DR with zero retraining. 3 takeaways from this session. First, S3 Lifecycle needs explicit non-current version expiry rules. Current-only policies leave ghost versions accumulating forever. Second, Aurora Serverless v2 now scales to 0. ACU on auto pause, making it the clear winner for idle dev schema. Third, Session Manager replaces both SSH keys and bastion hosts through IAM-controlled port-free instance access. Storage hygiene, keyless access, and dev cost are what examiners test hardest. Today's toughest scenarios prove that. Drill those patterns until they click automatically. Before the next batch, 3 quick asks. Subscribe if you want these without hunting for each one. It also nudges the algorithm to share them. Comment your score and what caught you out. If there's an exam you'd like covered next, suggest it below. And tell me how the pacing and visuals feel. I tune to what you say.